Good morning, Wednesday Wisdom, and we are a little bit late because Casey and I haven't seen each other for ages. So we've been on here chatting away, just finding out what's going on in our life and our business and everything. So welcome, Casey, coming on Wednesday Wisdom.
Thank you so much for having me again, Liz. I'm excited to chat.
Yeah, it's been so long. And so, Casey, you are going to talk about quiet power and business. So tell me a little bit more, because you market or you work with women. Do you work with men?
No, I'm exclusively with women, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As introverts.
Correct.
And believe it or not, I'm an introvert. Not many people they'd all go, no, but absolutely I am. I love being at home. I reflect internally. My brother says I'm an introvert with extrovert qualities.
That's right, Liz. And that's the thing. And I think we've talked about that before, is that, introversion is on a spectrum, right? And so again, and what one introvert's qualities are very different to another introvert's qualities. Some introverts actually love getting on stage and speaking from stage, because they say that once they've actually spoken from stage, they've established their authority, so that when they get off the stage and they're approached by individual people, they actually have something to talk about, because they really hate small talk, right?
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, like you and I have just met recently, well, not so recently now, but in person, and both of us will probably say, well, we don't feel like introverts because we're really chatty when we get, one-on-one. And so it really just depends. And that, I think, is one of the key pieces that I wanted to talk about today, because as you said, I am a marketing and business strategist for introverted, quiet, sensitive women, but I didn't know that I was an introvert right up until I was probably in my early 40s. I did not know that I was an introvert. I was a pretend extrovert, because I thought that I had to be out there all the time, doing the thing, being really charismatic and, chatty and all that kind of stuff to actually attract my ideal clients. And so I built my first business, which was a marketing consulting business that grew into an agency really quickly, 6 figures, a team of 5 or 6 subcontractors, and I was completely burnt out, Liz. And I realized then that, hold on a sec, this whole business model isn't suited to me. I realized how much I actually had to grow as an individual and really do the personal work on myself to be able to manage teams. And that's another whole conversation. But it was also really recognizing how introverted I was, and that I really needed to have that time to reflect, to recharge. When I'm out peopling, I need to pre-charge and recharge so that I can show up as my best self. And so I burned that business to the ground, and I started from scratch. And now that's what I'm really passionate about, is that I help introverted, quiet, sensitive women build businesses that are successful. Yes, on paper, the numbers, I want people to make a profit, because it's not an expensive hobby, right? We want to we're in business to make money, but more importantly, it needs to be sustainable, because we're in it for the long haul. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And so when you craft your marketing and your business model around you and your personality, it feels so much more comfortable, and you really do step into your quiet power. So
and it's all about being authentic, right? And so if we can't, especially at the moment, I feel like things are completely shifting, and if we can't be authentic, it's like one, for us, it damages our soul. In a way, because we're living externally to who we are, there's this play that's going on, and we've got to keep up with it, right? But also society, the way it is at the moment, is that everyone's looking for authenticity. Everyone's looking to trust someone that knows who they are and has got your back. And, I don't know if I'm correct in saying this, but I feel like people that are more introverted tend to be on a mission to, we've got a real drive to change the world and change the planet, and live shift the way things are going, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that, or is it, or
Yeah.
am I just,
Yeah.
thinking outside of the square?
No, Liz. So definitely what I wanted to talk about. So there's two pieces there that I think you raised. So I teach a model which is called the Quiet Conquer Code, which I love. And I use the 9 C's of marketing around this particular framework. And there's two pieces here that I think that you've touched on that I think is really, really important. And for your business to be successful, I think as an introvert, I don't necessarily think it's an introversion thing, but I think for many women specifically, there's a deeper concern, there's a deeper calling that we actually that really matters to us, that we want to actually make a difference in the world, right? And so, but for so long, we wear all these facades and we have all these other roles that we've got to play in our lives, that deeper concern, that deeper calling gets buried. And so we don't actually, and even we know that we yearn, we can feel that emptiness, that there's something missing, but we don't actually know what that thing is that's really missing, that deeper concern that really matters to us, that we want to make a difference in the world. So that's the work that is really, really important. I call it your calling. And really, so that's the first C actually, is that your calling, and really leaning into, what is it that really matters to you? What is the thing that you want to actually, I call it leaving your footprints in the sands of time, right? It's that Beyonce song, which is my theme song for the Quiet Collective. It's like, okay, you want to, something really matters to you that you want to change, that's not working in your life, in the world, and it's something that you want to change. Now, it's about unpacking that for yourself and really actually leaning in and understanding what it is, because it's not just about making money. Because if anyone was just about making money in business, then it would be easy. But there's something that's underlying that's the motivating factor that's going to help you see success. So that's the first thing that I think is really, really important. And actually, I had a client who's recently just untapped this for herself. So she has always been a technical virtual assistant, like that's her thing. She's always done it, but she's absolutely loved music, right? Like she's used music as therapy. She's used music as a way of managing her emotions. Like music has just been a part of her life for as long as she can remember, right? And she was feeling really stuck. She started this podcast, but she was feeling really stuck on it. And she was really it just wasn't going anywhere for her. She just didn't know what to do with it. And I had a coaching session with her a couple of weeks ago, and I said, okay, why are you still stuck on Struggle Street? You've got to understand and dig into why this really matters to you. And she just messaged me yesterday. She says, oh my gosh, Casey. She says, I literally sat with my favorite playlist and journaled for an hour, and I've written 5 pages of notes about why this shit really matters to me. Right? And it just gave me goosebumps. It's like, okay, this is amazing, because now it's this energy shift for her. And then she just messaged me last night. She's booked 2 major guests on her podcast. Her Facebook group has grown just in the space of a few days, because she's tapped into that piece about what's that motivating factor that's going to keep moving her forwards, right? And so
and so that's the quiet power you're talking about, right?
So that's the first piece, right? And that's really, really important. The second piece is this piece around credibility, which is one of the other C's. And I always say you've got to be sold on yourself before you can sell to anyone else. So once you really identify and are clear on what it is that's that deeper calling, that deeper concern for you, it's then leaning in and saying, okay, how am I the best one to actually solve this, or actually work on this to make it matter, right? And so we do a whole lot of work inside my program around actually unpacking what is it about you that makes what's your personal power, okay? And introversion is one of those things, right? Introversion isn't something that's holding you back. It's something to really embrace for yourself, because we have all these amazing qualities as an introvert that we can really leverage, and we actually make incredible leaders when we can lean into those qualities that may or may not be different for each other, right? It's about, we have some universal qualities. Like I think we're all really, really good listeners. I think we're deeply curious, we're introspective, those kind of things. But there's also unique nuances of that in terms of your introverted personality, that when you can tap into those things, it then leads into your authenticity, which was another, we can go into a little bit later. But yeah, that's
that's amazing. It's so true, because and I think we spoke about this last time you were on, that introversion can be seen as a dysfunction, or it used to be, right? It used to be like part of the personality that was shunned, in your own being, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, I can't be out there in the world like, everybody else seems to be, and not realizing that all the other introverts are silently in the background, saving the world or whatever,
Exactly,
so,
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why I say all the time, Liz. And that it really, something really, really fires me up is this idea that introversion is a character flaw, right?
Yeah.
And you go to the dictionary definitions, and I was absolutely horrified to read some of the things that even a dictionary definition of introversion still has today around. It even went so far as saying it's we narcissists, and I was like, what the hell are you for real?
God.
And I'm like, this is absolutely crazy. So I am on a crusade. This really matters to me, right?
Yeah.
And for so long we're told that yes, because our introversion, I'm highly sensitive too, and one of the stories that I've really worked hard to overcome is that, get over it, Casey, you're so sensitive, stop crying, you're so overly emotional, and I used to feel that.
Yes.
And for me, I'm like, I love the fact that I'm so emotional and so sensitive, because it allows me to create this amazing connection with my clients, because I can really empathize with where they're at, and I can understand and get into their shoes and understand where they're at, right? And so they feel really held, seen and heard and held and understood. And that's really, really important for me. So then looking at that and saying, really recognizing that all these qualities that potentially you've been told are bad, like they're a character flaw, actually turn them around for yourself and see that actually introversion is a superpower. And when you can really lean into that and see how you can actually step into those shoes and embrace them even more, it makes you an even more powerful leader. So that's really, really important.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And so basically you work to support women that are still in that, that structure of introversion is a character flaw, helping them open up to the fact that actually if they look internally, they can spread that out and be successful, right? Like
Absolutely.
Move that into a new structure, because as we were saying before, there is that we are quiet achievers out there just doing the work, just doing the work and then supporting,
Absolutely. Yeah, Liz. And that's the reason that I call the business the Quiet Collective, because yes, we serve quiet, introverted, sensitive women, but it's also so important. And I wish someone had told me this when I first started my first business, because I actually had no idea about this when I first started, but it's really so important to tap into your own quiet too, right? Yes. And so it's really, when you can start to quieten those little monkey chatter in your voice and really start to lean into what's true for you and lean into, okay, getting to know yourself intimately is really, and this is an ongoing journey, right? We're in it doing the work it's a journey. But the more that we do that, the more we actually embody our expertise. And that was the shift for me when I saw my business really scale. It was this piece around, okay, I know logically that I know my stuff, but I didn't feel it. And when I could, it was a shift when I was really, okay, I can embody this and I can feel it. That's when my business really, really exploded. And I could see the shift in my being and how I was showing up in the world, that then, okay, this is then how I can now continue to step up. And then, of course, we step into the strategies, right? And so for me, because I'm a strategist, it's like, okay, that's one piece of it. But now we've actually got to look at, okay, well, what's the strategy that we can put together that's really going to enhance that way of being, that you don't have to follow the cookie cutter formulas that, you know, the online gurus are saying. You don't have to pretend to be someone that you're not. You can actually take off that mask and actually create a business model and a marketing strategy that's really going to support your way of showing up. So I always say to my clients, you know, I very seldom do Facebook Lives. I'll do interviews like this, but, you know, I can probably count on two hands the amount of solo Facebook Lives I've done in my entire career. And yet I have a thriving business, right? And you don't need, this is the message that I want to get across to Liz, is that you don't need to should yourself into following any kind of marketing tactic that doesn't feel right for you. Now, it's not to say you don't have to stretch, because that's really important, right? So I don't want you to hide behind this, because I think any way of putting yourself out there, you're going to have to get comfortable with. So it's about expanding your capacity zone and saying, okay, I'm going to feel a level of discomfort doing this because it's new to me, right? You start riding a bike, it feels uncomfortable because it's new, right?
You've got to think about it.
Correct. It's going to be there is going to be a level of discomfort, but it's about leaning in and saying, okay, let's get uncomfortable for a little while, but see if this feels right for me. And again, I'm all around feeling it, okay? But it's also not taking those giant leaps out of your comfort zone, because I feel for introverts, when you take those giant leaps out of your comfort zone, because it's such an energetic push for you, stretch for you, then I find it's 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. And I always suffer a really big vulnerability hangover when I do that. I'm like, oh my God, did I really do that, Casey? So for me, it's about, okay, how can I stretch that elastic band so it's taut, but it's not so taut that it's going to snap, right? And so those are the things that I think, and I always share the story about, for me, when I was thinking about, okay, how do I want to put myself out there? And I had this story around, well, I should be a good writer because I'm an introvert, right? And so I should be a good writer because I love to read. But honestly, it took me hours to write blog posts, like literally hours. And yes, there's a whole level of perfectionism that I was getting over as well, you know? So there's that piece.
I know that one.
But then I was like, okay, you know what? I can't do this because I'm never going to actually put myself out there because it's taking me 3 days to write a blog post or whatever, you know? So I thought, okay, well, I'm going to just start podcasting. And I started my podcast back with my previous brand, and oh wow, I loved it. Like I literally loved it. And I was like, okay, yes, I was terrified when I first did it. Like I had Jamie Masters. I don't know if you know Jamie Masters, but Jamie Masters from The Eventual Millionaire was my very first guest. And she interviews people like Tim Ferriss, Tony Robbins, like all these really big names. And she was my very first guest. I was like, oh my gosh. But it was like, I really loved it. And that's then when I went on to host my summits. And the first summit had 4,000 women attend. And that wouldn't have been possible if I hadn't said, okay, I can see this isn't working. Let me stretch it. I'm going to try this and let me see. And that's how I managed to really scale it. You know, so really when you're thinking about that piece around connection, which is one of my 9 C's, that connection piece around marketing, think about, okay, what feels good to you, as well as where do you think your audience is? Like you've got to take into consideration where your clients are. So you can't be on TikTok if your clients are in their prime time, you know, because the chances are your audience aren't going to be there, you know. But you've got to think about, okay, well, what feels good to me, but also, you know, taking into consideration where your clients are as well.
Yeah. That sounds fantastic. So how do people get in contact with you? You can put some stuff down below in the comments once we finish, like your details and
yes, absolutely. And
website, I've got Facebook group.
Yeah, I've got all of that. So I've got the Introverted Women in Business Facebook group. I've got my website. I've also got a workbook. So if anyone wants to work through these 9 C's, I'll pop a link. I've got a workbook that you can actually work through to start to unpack that for yourself too. So I'll pop that in the link as a gift to audience too, Liz, but thanks for having me.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I love chatting with you, Casey. I remember the dinner party and we're all like, we've definitely I've got to come back up and we'll have to do that again.
Absolutely. Well, now that we kind of, I know you guys are suffering
I'm
from
in
lockdown at the moment, so we won't talk about that, but hopefully one of these days, hopefully November, actually.
Yes, because I'll be up in November. Yes, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Take care. Thank you everyone for watching, and if you're watching the replay, please put #replay. If you've got any questions for Casey, drop them in here as well, and just tag her in the comments so that she knows to come back. And we will see you next time. See ya.
Thanks, Liz. Thanks, everyone.